to order the February 1st special session. We're meeting tonight to discuss the director of schools. We've been through 2 sets of interviews. So I want to open the floor for the pleasure of the board. Mr. Underwood?
After studying and praying and hearing everything and reading and doing our due diligence, I'd like to have a vote for the new director of schools. And in that vote, I'd like to vote for who we think is our top pick for director of schools. And if we get 4, I'd like to extend to them a contract. If we do not get 4, whoever is the low person, I would like to kick them out and start discussion. That's my motion.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The motion is to vote on who you want for the director of schools. And if we get 4, offer a contract. If we don't, whoever has the lowest number, we decide between the other 2. Is that what you're saying?
Open discussion for the other 2.
Any discussion?
We'll
Mr.
see.
Rappaport?
You go ahead. That's a general comments. All I will do. Go ahead.
So, Madam Chair, I feel like we've done our due diligence. We have taken our time and we've gone through the process. We have narrowed down the candidates. I understand your motion is to go ahead and I guess you're making a procedural motion process-wise. I would like to see us proceed to go ahead and vote for the person that we think is the top candidate and go from there. But what you're suggesting is that the lowest candidate is eliminated, as I understand. So I can't support. No. I can't support that motion if that's my understanding is correct. If there was some type of vote where someone didn't get any votes or someone didn't get but 1 vote, then they would be out. So I guess if you will clarify your motion.
Sure. My motion is to vote for a director of schools. If we have 4 votes for one particular individual, we'll extend to them a contract. If not, whoever the lowest vote is, we'll kick them out. We'll open discussion for the other 2.
But my understanding of your motion is correct, then the lowest vote getter would be eliminated. So if there's a
potentially.
Well, what your explanation is, there would be. If someone got a 3-2-1, then that 1 would be eliminated, correct?
If they got a 4-1-1, we have a director of schools.
Correct. But if they got a 3-2-1, then you're eliminating that 1.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
And that's what I'm saying. I think we have gone through this process enough that we know the candidates, and let's just take a vote until we get a director. I'm not interested in eliminating anybody. They all 3 deserve to be a part of it. And so that's I understand your motion. I'm just clarifying your motion. I'm just making a comment.
Mr. Parker?
This may be directed to Mr. Hall a little bit to make sure that we do it correctly. Would a pick constitute as normally we motion, I guess if we're voting for this procedure, then maybe, but normally we would motion and for a candidate, a second for a candidate, and then a yes or no vote. Is this procedure correct? I guess is more, my question.
If I understood Mr. Underwood's motion that was seconded by Mr. Haley, the board can decide whatever procedure it wants. I didn't understand Mr. Underwood's motion as to whether or not there would be discussion or would it be just a vote in writing. But to your point, you could also do it the way you've suggested, that somebody puts forth a candidate, and if that candidate received a second, then that could also be the way the board decides. This is the board's process, and either way is permissible.
And I guess the only thing if we make the vote, there's 4 picks for one, then we have a director, but then I guess it lacks discussion on the candidates. But
Mr. Haley?
To clarify my second, the way I understood the motion, it seems a little semantic on the discussion at this point, but our job is to look at the candidates, look at the interviews that everyone here has seen, everyone watching has seen, but also we have a process we started with. We've done the search by the process that we agreed upon. And at the end of the day, we were going to vote on a candidate that we felt like would be our individual choice for director of schools. And Mr. Underwood, if I misrepresent your motion, I'm going to represent what I seconded, is that we take a vote on your selection of the 3 for director of schools. Should one of those 3 candidates receive 4 or more votes, then that is the board with a majority vote saying that is the candidate to extend the contract to. Otherwise, you wouldn't get 4 more votes when you're picking your final choice. That's what it is, the final choice. So if there's a discussion to be had, a pro or a con that you want to do before that vote, it would come during this discussion, which is why I seconded that to open the floor for discussion. So if 4 board members selected candidate G for that position, it would reason to believe that those 4 have made that selection as their pick for the director of schools. If there were less than 4 for any candidate, then there would be an elimination of the one with the lowest votes. That scenario of 4, 1, and 1, there would not be an elimination because there were 4 chosen offering a contract to a candidate. If it was a 3, 2, and 1, the one with 1 would be removed, and then you would return for a potential motion or a vote again between the 2 candidates. If it was a 5, 1, and 0, it would be the same obvious as a 4, 1, and 1. That scenario would be picking your candidate for director of schools. So I would think the time for a discussion prior to a vote would be during this discussion process. Should it wind up being less than 4 votes for any candidate, the top 2 and move on, there could be more discussion at that point, what level you want to have. But as Mr. Mandelbort said, procedurally, we have taken our time. We have all spent a lot of time that we asked for this job to do. Now it's our job to make a decision. We have all heard from most everyone in this room by phone or email or just by your presence. We've heard from so many that are watching on the YouTube tonight that have reached out to us. I would expect that everyone here has had emails and calls as I have, and I've tried my best to get back with them. The ones that came in today may not have been responded to because it has been quite a busy day, as you can imagine, and you're limited to how many phones can go in your ear. So if you got missed today, you were seen by me up to a certain time. After 4 or 5, I haven't seen emails. But I think the due diligence has been done, and I think it's time to take a vote and see where we stand.
I'm sure.
Mr. Mandelbort?
Again, I don't disagree with taking a vote. Obviously, we're here to take a vote. But again, I just disagree with that we're going to eliminate someone. And I guess I need more clarity on if we adopt this process, or we then headed towards a second vote. Is someone going to make a motion to approve candidate A, and then we're taking a vote on that person, or are we all naming the candidate that we want? Again, that's the clarification I need as well.
My second is for a motion that I understood Mr. Underwood make that we're voting for the candidate that you want for director of schools in hopes that there will be 6 people to agree on a candidate, which is probably unlikely. It would be a great hope, but should we not have the 6, 4 would constitute a majority and 2/3 of the votes approval for that candidate, and that would be the selection. So I guess if it's taking the vote, then that's what you're voting for your best candidate.
But again, we're eliminating somebody. That's the part I have an issue with. I take issue with.
Well,
So
if you have 4 or more votes, there's going to be 2 eliminations. That's just the nature of the vote of the
sure, correct. I get that, but then there's a 3-2-1 vote that would also get.
Well,
So.
Mr.
how do we eliminate 1 to get down to 2 without it being an elimination? How do we get to 2 without it being?
Well, you
an
keep
elimination?
voting. You keep voting. Again, that's his motion. I just wanted clarity. I understand the motion. And let me just add this. With absolute certainty, there needs to be discussion. We haven't discussed any of these candidates. We've talked with the candidates. We have not talked amongst ourselves about the candidates. I hope we haven't talked amongst ourselves about the candidates, but be that as it may, I think these folks that are listening in want to hear our discussion about the candidates and why. So absolutely.
I certainly agree with the discussion aspect, and that is the whole intent of there being a motion. And a quick second was to open the floor for discussion. That's the point. I guess you could have discussion without a motion, but procedurally, from a board standpoint, does there not need to be a motion and a second for a discussion?
Yes, that's correct. For debate, or chair can call for just open discussion, but on a motion and a second, then now we're in the debate or discussion period. And so now would be the time, if there are going to be public statements made, that they could happen now.
So with that clarity, if that's what the board wishes to do, I'm fine with that. I wanted the floor to open up for discussions to whatever degree. And I think if we wind up, down to 2 candidates at some point, that there would probably be more discussion, and there always could be. But as long as we have the opportunity for whatever level of discussion you want, whether it be on the heels of a second or the chair open the floor for discussions, I'm good either way.
And I was just unclear on what Mr. Underwood's motion was regarding the vote on whether or not there was going to be open discussion when he said take the vote, because of the prior, when we voted the last time, we took those by ballot rather than having discussion on the particular candidate. So that helps me, Mr. Haley, to understand what you, at least to my way of thinking, thought you were seconding.
And my point was the second was to allow for discussion amongst the board, but I think we're saying the same thing.
I think so.
Close to the same language.
I did too. I put it that way in the form of a motion, so we would have that opportunity for discussion at a second.
So the floor is open for discussion.
Mr. Vanderboard, if you would feel better with discussion with not being a motion, I have no problem withdrawing my second on that as long as we have that.
Sure, just to clarify, as I understood, his vote is, his motion and the vote would be more towards procedural. And then I'm assuming someone would make a motion to then proceed to vote for X. And then we would decide against whom or for whom we're voting at that point. And then my thought would be that's in the form of a motion. And then we're going to have discussion about the candidates then. What we're discussing here to me is procedurally what we're going to do.
That's clear. I can agree with you on that and don't disagree whatsoever.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. Yep. Thanks for the clarity.
Just so I'm clear, are we now voting on a procedural motion on how we're going to conduct then the vote for the new director of schools? Or are we actually voting, this motion is actually to vote for the new director of schools?
I would draw my second on the first motion to make the vote for a person and would hopes maybe that Mr. Underwood would agree and make the motion to be a procedural motion on how we're going to do it, and then come back for the vote after we have discussion. Okay. Same results. Thank you.
So you're saying I need to withdraw and make it a procedural motion instead of
Yes.
Okay.
It's your motion.
All right, I'd be glad to do that if it pleases the chair.
And just so I'm clear, is there now a board member who wants to make a procedural motion on how we pick the next director of school?
If I could take a chance at a procedural motion, I would make a motion. This board will make a motion for procedure. The procedure will be whenever we do take a vote, that we will vote for your number one candidate, one selection, your candidate for director of schools. And when that vote is taken, should one candidate receive 4 or more affirmative votes for director of schools, they will be extended a contract. Should 4 or more votes not be received, the candidate with the lowest votes will be removed and we'll be down to 2 candidates and approach it a second time.
And that's the procedure you want
Correct.
to follow. with
It's a procedural motion,
the
correct.
Director of schools. Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second.
Discussion? Call vote.
Mr. Vandercourt,
No.
Ms. Brogdon,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Motion carries.
So just to restate for the board, the procedure will be now someone will nominate or make a motion for their preferred candidate.
No, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. The motion was that we will be doing the ballots. We will select your number one candidate and they'll be counted up. It won't be for a person. You will put down your candidate like we did on the first vote.
Okay.
And
But-
right. That was my motion.
And there's going to be discussion because that's
Well, discussion, we didn't have discussion now. We
Yes.
we have a procedure
Yes.
set aside, so it's open for discussion. There's no vote taken at this point in time.
Yep.
No call for a vote, just for a procedure.
Well, at this time, Madam Chair, I'd like to be heard if I may. So, folks, this has been a difficult dilemma that we've faced, and quite frankly, I didn't plan on being involved in it. But here we sit. For that reason, I've struggled. So it's not been easy. We talk about leadership, and I've come prepared for us with a statement, so please bear with me. Famous quote by Theodore Roosevelt entitled "In the Arena." A portion of that famous quote talks about leadership. And that's what we're talking about is leadership. Part of that quote says, "It's not the critic who counts, but it's the man who who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by the dust and the sweat and the blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again because there's no effort without error and shortcomings." So that's what we're talking about. Leadership. That's what we're striving for. Mr. Underwood has brought it up. He's looking for a leader. Roosevelt describes someone that's been immersed in the fight. And we're talking about an educational fight. And it has the scars to show it. Well, I'm here to tell you, and I've stated my piece before, I'm here, I think that person is Corey Duke. I think he has been in the fight. By his own admission, he's not perfect. None of us are. But he has the commitment, the experience, and the drive to lead our system. We talk about an academic leader. Again, somebody that's been in the arena. Dr. Duke he's opened 2 schools as a principal, Dickson Intermediate School, Dickson Middle School, Burns Middle School, I apologize. Dr. Duke as principal has led 2 level 5 schools, Dickson Intermediate and Burns Middle School. Dr. Duke as a principal at Creekwood, he drove the graduation rate from the 70th percentile to the 90th percentile. Dr. Duke knows as I said, he knows his shortcomings. He's not perfect. But as we said here today, he admitted publicly what his weaknesses are. He says, I know curriculum, but I'm not the strongest in curriculum. So what is he willing to do? Surround himself by good folks that know curriculum. I think knowing your weaknesses are important and stating them. That is the type of collaboration and intentionality that I think this board needs. Someone during the course of these interviews has brought up that data is something we need to look at because it shows things. It shows a trajectory. Well, what I just relayed to you all from where I'm sitting, Mr. Duke, Dr. Duke's trajectory for leadership in academics and as a school board director, that trajectory is pointed upward. So as a spokesman for the board, I feel like he would be a strong spokesperson. We need someone that brings cohesiveness and that, as someone said, can pull this community together, pull the county commission together, and quite frankly, pull the school board together. And I think he's that person. Dr. Duke has come before this board on behalf of a school. His leadership team asked him to come and speak to this board about a dress code, and that was controversial at the time. But his leadership team asked him to do it, and he thought it was well-reasoned, and he felt strong about the thought, and more importantly, he was trying to improve the culture of his school. So to me, that shows conviction, it shows integrity, and it shows that he's willing to make a decision in the face of opposition. It shows to me that he's capable of going and working with our county commission to get things done, to get things accomplished. We've been spinning. I think that person is Dr. Duke to get us to that end. As a local homegrown person, Dr. Duke came back to Dickson County, raised his family here in Dickson County. And we talk about this program, and we want this program to be successful. And that's the Grow Your Own program. Well, what better way to demonstrate that we mean what we say about growing your own than somebody that's come up through elementary, middle, and high school and has returned to his home county than appointing him as director of schools. So at this point, that is my motion. I make a motion that we appoint Dr. Duke as the director of schools for Dickson County. Thank you.
Point of order to the attorney, please. Do we have to have a second on the floor before it can be any more discussions for anybody else? I thought we were going to the point where we could all have discussion first. Since there's a motion, I can't make a discussion until there's a second or a failure.
I think your point of order is correct. I think the motion either needs to be second or withdrawn, and we just have discussion on the candidates and then take the vote. So there's a pending.
If the board wants to have discussion, I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I've stated my piece. Thank you.
Mr. Hayes?
Since I'm being stared at for grabbing the mic, I guess I'm next. Mr. Vandervoort, I appreciate that because that's why I withdrew my second on the first to give an opportunity to discuss the candidates. And I do believe that there could be more than one level of discussion, and you obviously want to address this to the lowest level possible to give everyone a right to be heard. But I sat down many times and started writing things out. Every time I would write it, I would get up at 2:00 in the morning after the last phone call and start writing it again. And I'd go a different direction. But off the cuff, we all agreed on a procedure. I, like Mr. Vandervoort, was not looking forward into my term for this happening again, but it is before us. And as Mr. Vandervoort said about 4 months ago, it's our duty as a board to address the issue. We took the avenues that this board agreed upon. We hired a consultant to help us organize some of that. And they did so with several levels, the public meetings, the public input, the board input. And initially, the procedure was agreed upon that we would go from 5 candidates and we would take a vote and we'd take the top 2 and potentially have a second round of interviews. But we ran into a stumbling block that I don't think any of us ever projected, and that was a tie that would create 3. I did say 5, we had 4, but 5 was the option, and the 5th candidate withdrew. So going through everything as we had agreed to do, it does create the opportunity for the fine people that are here and the ones that are watching that is a great service to have the input from to see what we've done. There's no better open meeting than what we have produced here. We've taken the people's information, the employees, the staff, the parents. We didn't take input from the children, but the children are our focus and what we're here for. And our decision is what will point the way for the children. That's what we're here for. I've told board members over the years, and one just the past couple of weeks, I think I've mentioned, Ms. Adams, I'm going to call you out because I've mentioned it to you several times in pre-K meetings. Years ago, they have to have a board member sit on the pre-K board, and that I was chosen to be that person after a former member got off the board. And not everyone here knows we have a pre-K board member, but watching those pre-K kids and teachers present twice a year opened my eyes to the fact that they don't care what we do here. When you start feeling like you're isolated, all focused on what does Steve think, what does Sonia, Kurt, Joe, Aaron, and Phil think, take a trip down the elementary hallway. No disrespect to a middle or high school. Those are preteens and teens. They're largely the same way, but if you want to see some innocence, go look at a pre-K or a 3rd grader. Go pass by them classrooms, and they don't care what we're talking about here, but they're affected by it every day. So the direction by the people, by what we've done, leads us to candidates that quite frankly could all fit the bill. It'd be much easier if there was one that just stood out like a knight in shining armor that made it easy, but that's just not the case. All 3 candidates would make good directors of schools. All you people have told us the same thing. You all have a favorite, and that's great. Quite frankly, all 4 of the candidates would have been, but just the fact that we had the odd situation of a tie almost pointed to Mr. Hawley that he is not the person, when that's just not the case. There's going to be one. So it wasn't about removing you. You had a great interview. You work hard for this system, and I appreciate that. And same with all the staff and the teachers and the parents that are here, the future candidates, anybody that's involved. But it boils down to this. I asked to be on the school board. With that in mind, I've got to make one choice of what I think will be the best lead. Trying to break that down, I had to look at the procedure that schools operate by the state law of Tennessee. There's a school board, not of teachers. Retired teachers are not only welcome, but there is always one on the board, and I'm glad to have that teacher perspective. And I appreciate the retired teachers getting involved in what we do. It's tough because you're dealing with 40 years of students, and you're dealing with 40 years of neighbors, 40 years of influence, and you have to package that down to a vote. It's tough for you. It's tough for me. The people I work with, people I see every day, we all have the same situation. It's tough. Sleepless nights. And we hear what y'all say, and thank you. It's our duty to pick one. I look at what a director of schools works with a school board to set goals, annual goals. It's not my job to tell a director every day, Dr. McCord, fix this. Dr. McCord, fix that. Dr. Weeks, fix this, fix that. It becomes commonplace that we all think if we can call a school board member, they can fix things. That's not the case. We set policy. We set budget. We vote tenure. We hired a director. We hear appeals, those type things. We are the people's voice in a microphone to a director in a public meeting, not a meeting for the public, but in the public. It boils down to you've got to make a decision on what you think is the best course for the school board to work with a director to set goals for the future. Shouldn't be looked at that any of you are against anyone. I'm not against anyone. I have respect for everyone that's applied. I have respect for Dr. Habrard. He stuck his neck out from a different town and is exposed to the people in his community. For what? For our benefit, for our kids. The same with, two principals. The same with a former assistant principal. The same with a former central office staff member. Their names are on the line every day. It's not against anybody. What can this board work together with? What can we agree to move forward with? It's not a lifetime appointment. It's a work in progress. It's been a lot of work done the last few months, a lot in the public the last few weeks. But the fact is, the work starts tomorrow, not today. If we don't come together as a board to point a direction, and we don't work with the right goals to set the direction for a new director, no matter who it is going to fail. The work starts tomorrow. It's not today. So keep that in mind. When we go to select a director, it's not a vote against somebody. It's who do I think that I can work with, that will work with the board to set the goals in the future for the system and work starting tomorrow with the goals for the people. We are the voice of the people. One question I get is there's no teachers making that selection. That's correct, because the law won't let a sitting teacher sit on the school board and hire their own boss. There's not a job out there anywhere that you have to vote for your boss. This is about as open as it gets. So I appreciate all your input. I appreciate all your thoughts. If my responses weren't what you wanted, they were my thoughts. They were the direction, and they're made with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And while there's a lot involved in it for this short period, it's not near the blood, sweat, and tears that these teachers and these kids and these parents deal with every day. So let's start the work tomorrow by picking somebody we can work with to move forward. That's all.
I suppose I'm next. I do say that I was a teacher here in this county for 39 years. These three people on the right, former students. I was a biology and chemistry teacher, mostly biology, but I did teach chemistry a lot. And I want to offer a little analogy here. I'm in my lab, but my lab only has two chemicals in it, labeled jars A and B. If I place the contents of these bottles in a reaction pot, my pot now contains a mixture called AB. No matter how I stir my mixture or let it set for a while, I still only have the AB combination. So it is decided to give everyone a cup, and each person is given a small portion of the AB mixture. Each person now has what everyone else has. If someone were to say, let's see what we can change. I'll give you some of mine, you take some of mine, and we'll just all swap the cups around. When the cups are examined, everyone still has the AB mixture. How does the status quo change if all the cups are still the same? But there may be other labs somewhere. There may be a different bottle discovered. And so I'm going to call it bottle C. When I place some of bottle C contents into my action pot, I notice a chemical change. I may see color change. There may be effervescence, like when you dropped the Alka-Seltzer tablet in the glass of water. The reaction may give off heat, but an observation reveals a definite change is occurring. We need changes to happen in Dickson County. We need to change some school letter grades, some TCAP scores, some reading scores. We need to improve the absentee rate. We need to improve on keeping teachers so they do not leave for higher paying jobs in other education systems, or they have to leave for out of education jobs in industry or business. We need to improve teacher morale and to increase community support. If we draw from the A-B pot, does this ensure change? If we draw from the ABC pot, we must now desire to help those changes come about. As I said on Monday night, I care for the 7,676 students in our system. Many are generations of former students of mine. I care about the 1,086 full-time employees that make our system function. I care about those whom I serve not only in my district, but in the other 5 districts as well. Okay, I think you probably surmised candidate down favoring. And Mr. Vandervoort stated his. I'll state mine now. It's Dr. Hebert, excuse me.
You know, we all make decisions different. We all make decisions based on our own life experiences. A lot of times, you know, I'm here today. I'm prayed up. I'm studied up, and I'm ready to lead. You know, we learn a lot of things from our work in our lives, and we learn things in our life as we get older. You know, we learn things from our faith and our parents. But one thing that we never forget are things that are taught by our teachers. So when it comes to hiring a director, I've taken all those experiences and put them together, and I will cast a vote for who I feel is best. And I will only be swayed by my faith, by my family, by my teachers. I don't care what color they are. I don't care what sex they are. I'm looking for the candidate that will encourage our teachers, encourage our directors, and lead through example. I don't remember which one it was. I think they all did, to be honest with you. But we asked them what they could change in their lives. They could change anything. And they all, of course, had examples, but they all said, we're not perfect. We're not perfect. Well, that's okay. Because nobody here is either, especially on this board. None of us are perfect. But when we make mistakes, and I told Miss Vivian this when she started, she was worried about making a mistake. I said, Miss Vivian, if you make a mistake, it's all right. We'll figure it out. We'll figure out how it happened, and we'll see if we can keep it from happening again, and we'll just roll on. That is life. That'll be the basis upon my vote. And I appreciate y'all listening.
I didn't write a speech.
See, Mr. Parker with no words. Are you okay, sir?
Actually, I think my stomach's hurt.
Give me Snickers.
Do I need to call? I think I might need to call it sick.
I just want to echo what some of these others have said. Our issues start because we have such good candidates to choose from. And it is a hard decision. I mean, we've heard from a lot of the public and the teachers. And you can imagine it's every candidate has had good comments and concerns voiced to us. We have to pick the one that we think we can work with and work with the teachers. One that can take criticism, one that, can change certain characteristics if they need to. And we do appreciate all of the ones who have sat through these interviews. I cannot imagine how difficult it is to sit and go through what you've been through the last month, and I really do appreciate it. Parker?
I do. I want to clear something up on our procedure, and it's just clarity. It's nothing changing. During the vote, if nobody gets 4, then there's not a winning vote. Anybody can bring up any candidate back up. Does someone lose the vote? Is there a loser? Because a loser of a vote can't bring it back up. So I guess what I'm saying is, if we don't have the
procedure as the board adopted is if a candidate gets 4 votes, then that candidate will be extended a contract. If a candidate does not receive 4 votes, say there was 2, 2, and 2, then there would be more discussion. If there was 3, 1, or 3, 2, and 2, or 3, 2, and 1, 3, 2, and 1. Yeah, sorry, my math's off. That's why I became a lawyer. If there was 3, 2, and 1, then the candidate that got 1 vote would be eliminated, and then the board would advance their preferred candidate, and we would have a presumed debate on that candidate and another vote.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Do we need to make a motion to do the vote, Mr. Hall?
I don't know whether you're voting in public or whether you're voting by paper ballot. I'm not sure how you're
All right.
going to vote.
You're going to read them anyway, aren't you?
Yeah.
Be the same as the first round. We did the paper ballot. They're read aloud with the names. It is a public vote, but you make your vote and turn it in.
Okay.
So we're voting by paper ballot, but it's going to be announced. That's what we did before.
Just like before. That's what we did 2 weeks ago.
And again, to clarify, if it's a 3, 2, 1, the 1 is eliminated.
That is correct.
We need our names and
And who
yes.
you want for director?
Just like this time, you what? I would told them. Almost a surprise for everybody. It's great.
They can sort it. There may be one.
Kurt Vandervoort, Corey Duke. Sonia Brogdon, Christy Sutherland. Steve Haley, Christy Sutherland. Philip Chadwick, Miles Hebrand. Joe Underwood, Christy Sutherland. Aaron Parker, Miles Hebrand. The vote is 3 for Christy Sutherland, 2 for Miles Hebrand, 1 for Corey Duke. Mr. Duke is eliminated as a potential candidate.
Floor is open for more discussion.
I suggest it'd be prudent to take a second vote now with the final two candidates and get a vote before further discussion.
I'll second that.
Clarify your motion, you're saying no more discussion? You don't want to discuss?
No, I'm okay with discussion. I wasn't trying to eliminate that. I know it's not that way, and I apologize. That wasn't my intent.
You made a motion for another vote in a second, but we're going to have discussion.
Sure.
Correct? Any discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Parker?
The discussion I want to have on this procedure with two candidates. And this may be another question for Mr. Hall. If it is a 3-3 and it is a fail, don't understand how that works, because if it is a failing vote, so if 3 people vote one, 3 people vote the other, if you lose, you cannot never bring it back up. I feel like we would be at a straight stalemate.
It's a tie and the board would vote again.
And then we're going to do that all night long?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. I'm good with it.
Any other discussion?
I guess I would like to hear those that have voted for candidates exactly why. Why convince me as a board member exactly why I should vote. You all know folks that I have voted for have been eliminated, so I'd love to hear it. And I guess the public would as well.
Mr. Vandervoort, I agree with you. I'm glad you said that, because typically that's basically what we're doing. And Mr. Parker made the sure, yeah, discussion only.
Yeah, sure, and I apologize.
No,
Let me echo what some of these folks have said. All of these folks are good candidates, and we have had good candidates. I happen to support Mr. Holly, and I happen to support Mr. Duke. I know all the candidates. We know them well.
Mm-hmm.
So as you said, and I agree with you, we've had very good candidates, and this is again a dilemma that I did not want to be in, but now we sit here. So thank you for that.
hey, gladly, and I echo your comments on that. We had good candidates. We had 2 good candidates eliminated. I'm thankful they work for our system and hope they remain. I hope their future endeavors are the same goal, because it's really a challenge. But I had an email, had a couple of them, one in particular that was asked the question that I want to answer, and I'm not much of preparing. I think these fellows on both sides of me prepared statements that are a very good job. I tried to prepare something, but when I prepare something, it's never all inclusive. I kind of go with the moment, but any of you I've talked to on the phone, I kill 2 birds with one stone. You know what I'm thinking, but you don't know my justification. But you also realize that I talked for an hour and a half and you never call back again. So it kind of solves that. But, I'm a discussion person. And many of you over the years have talked to me on more than one occasion. I like open dialogue. So I do carry on, but it's not always all inclusive, but you're going to get it from my heart. That email came from Ms. Masters. The specific line several alluded to, but she just came out and asked it. And I didn't answer you on purpose because it was premature, is justification for your decisions. These three candidates could easily be justified any way you want to. So I can only speak to my justification. And it's not meant to be derogatory to any of them because they are all very good candidates. Dr. Barr said himself, this board has got a challenge ahead of them. While I look at the audience while I talk, I'm talking to my fellow board members. We have a challenge. And looking at all aspects, not just the interviews, all aspects. To me, the broadness of the candidate that I selected, Dr. Sutherland, equaled the experience of Dr. Herbard. If you could shake them up and pour them out and have one person, then the life would be easier. But I'm with Mr. Van Voort. We find ourselves in this position. And when you find yourself in this position with the three or with the two, you look at me to pick what I think will work best for this community. That's where I listened to you that reached out to me. I heard you all. I heard the ones that chose Dr. Duke, and I heard you very clearly. He's a fine candidate. I heard those that chose Mr. Hawley. He's a fine candidate. I heard those that select the remaining two candidates. But when I look and try to say which one stands out, neither, both, however you want to say it. When it comes down to it, we've got a good school system. I've heard that. We have a lot of good programs. One of the early calls I got from a former teacher of mine in the 9th grade, Dickson Junior High. I won't call her name. You all know her. You probably all had her. She has the teaching history in Dickson and the following of students, family, and friends. Mr. Chadwick. They're exposed to a lot of people. 95+% of the exposures they have having students is all positive. Unlike my exposure in the community, half the ones I run across sometimes wind up good or bad results. I worked for emergency services for years. Just it's a job that I chose, one that I love, but I've met a lot of people for years. But when I look at their experiences, yes, one has a current director of schools experience. The other has Department of Education experience, which is the broadness of what a director does. A director is not a principal. A director is a director. A director deals with the state. A director deals with the public. A director, unfortunately, deals with a school board. This is the 6 you've got today. I wish anybody a long career, the chances of us 6 being here throughout your career are basically zero unless you're planning on a short career. There's an election this coming year. These 6 faces will likely change, and that's okay. My goal remaining on this board, I asked myself why I'm here, why I want to remain another term. Not an election speech. I want to leave a board as good or better than I found it. I want it to have a direction. And I think what we have in our system is good. I think both candidates recognize that, and I think both will move along with that. I think Dr. Sutherland has a jump start because she is here, not because she lives here, not because of her address. It jump starts us a little bit ahead. That, to me, gave an edge from the experience standpoint. It's been said. It's well known. I will say it again out loud for everybody in the back to hear. Dr. Sutherland is married to my first cousin. We have a nepotism policy. Cousins are not in that policy. She's not my cousin. She's married to my cousin. I have 10, 12, 15 cousins that work in the school system. We vote for their raises. I don't disclose that because I think we all have family somewhere in the system. As a well-respected former chairman said one time, it is a family business. We want it to be a family business. I want your kids teaching. If you're a principal, I want your kids coming into the system to work. Nepotism is there for evaluation purposes. The lineage from that right there does not extend to cousins. Let that be public as it can be. That wasn't my choice. I didn't choose her 12 years ago when she ran. I didn't think she was ready then. I think she is now. I think her experiences, while she has not, as I heard, been the man to make that decision, no one in the school system has been the man to make the decision. Dr. McCord, I don't see you, but I know you're there somewhere. I told her, when you make that first school cancellation that's borderline, you were lucky you got that much snow. It made the job easy. Let it be a hint of some and wonder. You're not the man who you have to make that decision. The woman, it's meant to go both ways. But when you're in that position, or the social media world's coming at you, like it or not, you make the decision. I told you, you make the decision you think is best, and I got your back all the way. So that is a minor decision, but that is a very public, at the moment, decision. They make decisions every day. So, experience standpoint, I ranked them close. I gave the knowledge of the system a bit of an advantage. The experiences, the education, they all seem to be neck and neck. They both make good candidates. There's no question about it. We're very fortunate. My choice is made because I think the less change, the better. That was the premise behind me asking, personally wanting Dr. McCord to step in as interim. We're very thankful that she did that. We're very fortunate. You're very fortunate she did. I watch it come out of her every day, tugging and pulling from parents, teachers, staff, county commission, everybody involved. We're all part of a system, but this is our job. And they all pull and tug. She's made it 3 months. She says that she'll make it what we need. If we don't come to a decision, if we don't come to a consensus tonight, we can stay till the sun comes up. I'm fine. I'll stay up a lot more nights than y'all do. But if we don't come to that consensus, we may have to recess. We may have to hear more from the public, go home and do some soul searching on the things we've learned here tonight. This is the first time we've talked to each other, our feelings on this right here. It'd be nice to go into our caucus meetings like the state can. We're not allowed to do that. So I can try to read what Mr. Vandervoort's thinking just because I've been around him. I don't know what he's thinking. I'm not supposed to know. That's why we do it in the public. My thoughts are they're neck and neck in so many ways that I felt like the jump start of the knowledge is what I needed. It's been said. I hear it from everybody that I hear bad things about some people. Every one of y'all in here has heard bad things about me. I hear them too. But that's because I'm on the school board and I make my voices known. It gives everybody a chance to not like what I say or to like it. That's fine. I'm here to be your voice. But whenever you're in this system, there's somebody that you're not going to be their favorite. But I do believe that Dr. Sutherland, the many years I've known her, does not begrudge anything to that level. I think she will give every principal, every teacher, every staff member, more important, every student, an opportunity. No matter where you're from, where you're going, she will do what is in her heart and that is to be a servant of the people. I do believe Dr. Hubbard would be the same way. I've met him as much as you have. I'm very impressed with him. I believe that he would treat the same, but I think just that slight learning curve might create some sense of a vacuum, might create some sense of a learning curve time-wise for the jumpstart aspect. I trust that whichever one of them is chosen as the director would remain in contact with the other 1 county away, 10 county away, a retirement away, and have input. I think Dr. Sutherland will do that from Dr. McCord, from avenues at the state, from avenues across our state, and her experiences as the Mid-Cumberland representative for the secondary elementary schools on the coaching, training, and building up that liaisons from the state and our academic department. I think she will give all she has to be involved in every aspect of schools. But for me to sit here and think that she is going to be a fix-all for everybody and everything, doesn't happen. I'm not going to be your fix-all. I hear you and do what I can. No one is going to do something that fixes something for everybody, but I think she will be fair. I think she will be equitable. And I think that she will give all she's got to make that aspect.
If being an outsider is a detriment, then I'm from neighboring county. I did my student teaching at Charlotte High School back in fall of 1967. I've been under, as I told Dr. Weeks tonight, last night at the board meeting, I've had 6 superintendents I've worked under, 5 different principals. But we were sort of befuddled when we received some information from Dr. Weeks about the number of positions that we had. 23 new jobs were created in the last administration, and I don't know, we've had the proposal for three new ones coming up. You look at some of those positions, and there's a secondary position and an elementary position, the same title, just except, and I don't know if there's enough work. Again, I don't know how much they do. I'm just saying, you have a secondary person for this and an elementary person for this for the same job is, and it's made, prove this to me. I'm gladly to accept it. The work, is it too much for one person? And Dr. Hebron suggested that he would look at, we need to streamline our board. When you look at the website, there are 63 names of people who have jobs. 63 names. And I have contacted some other counties, and they don't have near that many central office staff people. And to me, when you stir the same pot, you get the same results, in my opinion. That's why I think we need somebody from outside.
Here's where I'm at. I took a little heat in my district for voting for Mr. Hubbard just because he was from out of town. He said, well, we've had that. Didn't work out. The problem with the out of town person is, and not everyone's the same, I understand that, but the problem with the out-of-town one is if things don't work out here in our community, they just go home. With an in-town, with one of our own, if we have someone that is qualified, I think we should build them up. What good is it if we tell our people, hey, no, you're not good enough? We've got somebody from out of town coming in. And in fact, we do have people that are good enough right here in town. The good thing about having someone here in town or in our community is they go to church here. They have businesses here. Their husband or spouses may have businesses here. And so they've got a name to protect. And with that comes a harder working attitude. I like what Miss Sullivan said. She liked her kids to get A's and B's. She said her son brought home a C one time, and she's like, well, we're going to have to work on that. I like someone that strives for excellence. Strives for your very best, I guess I should say, not excellence. We should do our best. And I look at the resume that Miss Sullivan has given us, and I hope you've all done your due diligence and looked at her 30-day, 90-day, 120-day plan, but I hope you also got a hold of her references in the back of the book there. And the neat thing about those references were, and I learned this from Kirk, they're all education professionals. She doesn't, there's nothing in the back that says, and none of the others did, but I'm going to exaggerate here. There's nothing in the back that says, hey, call my wife or call my husband. They'll tell you I'm a good candidate. These are references from Murfreesboro school system, the director at Murfreesboro schools. There's the director from Tullahoma schools giving her recommendations. She worked under Mr. Chandler as vice principal at Dickson Middle. Had a letter in there recommending her. He said, yeah, she's ready. That's his recommendation as well. We had a recommendation in there, and I mentioned it last time I was in here from the state, from the Department of Education. Now, I don't have anything against Mr. Hubbard. I think he's a good guy. But I'm a grow your own guy. When we've been in this board meeting and Gerald and I like to have a good time when we say, well, did you get a bid from anybody in town? Can anybody in town do this? Why are we going outside of town? You see it on these stickers, buy local, be local. Well, now's our chance. We've got someone that is capable, more than capable, and more than qualified to do what we have to do. Don't send one of our own down the road. It's ridiculous. We have all these people and professionals in this building that are striving to be more, and then they come up to be more, and we kick them down. And I think it's sad. And I'll rest at that.
The votes for Mr. Miles, it's not against Corey or Christie. It's not against you votes. We debated about making the interviews live. Why did we do that? Because we thought that the last candidate would have a thing. Christy, she did a great job. She set the bar high. She had a great first interview. And then I thought, well, maybe as Advance to go first, set the bar high. When Mr. Miles come, I do think that they're equal in their great resumes, great interviews, experience in the director's position. I know that there's going to be, no matter who it is, out of all the candidates, there's always going to be a growing pains and learning what to do, how to do, and getting everything set up the way that the director wants it set up. Always going to be growing pains, with a new director. I don't know if it matters how much experience they got. If a new director comes in from another county and or we hire a new director that doesn't have any director experience, there's going to be a lot of growing pains going there. I feel like it's less of them with someone that has that experience. When I asked each candidate what to do what they wanted to do in their first 100 days, I thought to myself as I wrote that question down, what do I want that answer to be? I wrote that question down. I was writing all them questions down that I kind of wanted to ask, and then myself I was like, I don't know I don't even know what I want my answer to be. So I had to think about what I wanted. What did I want to hear from them? And so, well shit, where's 100 days? Well, we're already out of school. We're in the middle of summertime, and that's why I specified that's going to put you somewhere in June. What are you going to do in your first 100 days? The answer that I was looking for was budget. April, May, June. That's we meet more than other than in January. That's usually when we meet more than we ever do, and it's all about the budget. And that was what was in my head. Miss Christie did get the budget there at the end of that, but that was his first thing, and it's just from director experience that he knew 100%. June, yeah, it's budget time, and I think the experience is what I'm after. When you have two equal candidates, not equal resumes, but beautiful resumes on both sides, a lot of experience in their education career, and then great references, both sides. What does one have over the other? It's just the experience.
I agree that either one would do a great job. They answered their questions alike, even though they didn't hear each other's answers on that second night of interviews. I guess my deciding factor more is I agree with the grow your own. And if it's somebody that is local, I think they're invested a little bit more because everywhere they go, they're going to hear about it. And to me, that's the deciding factor between the two. Mr. Vandervoort?
I appreciate all your comments and taking them to heart and listening to it. I repeat about the third, fourth, or fifth time, I did not want to be in this position. And I'll say publicly, we had a great director of schools, tremendous director of schools. We couldn't have asked for a better director of schools. There's a reason he lasted for 12 years. There's a reason, but there's a reason it ended as well. And that's why we're here tonight. So with all due respect, and I don't want to be combative about this, but we talk about grow your own and you name your 1 and 2 candidate and the number 1 and 2, whichever direction, both of them are not local. We've got Mr. Holly, Charlotte, grew up here. We got Mr. Duke, Charlotte, grew up here. Miss Sutherland, yes, absolutely. We've been here, raised her family here. But when you put down 2 candidates, either 1 and 2, some of us did that, and that's fine. You got the right to do that. And that's not grow your own. You're talking about somebody from, and that's not what it's about. Yes, I believe we should award folks that are here. That runs a course. It just does. But it only runs a course so far. So we've got 2 great candidates. Both have varying experiences. And again, we're just in an unfortunate situation. And I hope you all understand that, and I hope you appreciate that. I know you do, but we're the ones that are going to have to make that decision and then sleep on it. It may be here we're sleeping, but we'll sleep on it. So thank you all for hearing me.
Anyone else?
What would you bring tonight?
I've been tearing them in half.
Planning ahead. Shall I write it down?
Okay.
There.
Vanderboard, Miles Hebrand. Ms. Brogdon, Christy Sutherland. Mr. Haley, Christy Sutherland. Mr. Chadwick, Miles Hebrand. Mr. Underwood, Christy Sutherland. Mr. Parker, Miles Hebrand, 3-3.
Ask for a break, please.
Yes, we'll recess. What's our next step?
Arm wrestle. I got a bad shoulder and I cannot arm
Try
wrestle.
to have a little likeness in it.
Any other discussion? Any comments?
No, I'm just leaning. I'm just leaning.
Lean further, go ahead.
I'm thinking. You go ahead. I'm still thinking. As a lot of what I've heard from everybody, and for years, the district needs change. I don't even know if anyone ever got specifics. I don't know the word I'm looking for with what change they wanted, what they want to change, and some of you may not know unless you talk to me personally. I was a fan of Danny Waits as a director. Now, did he do some things that I didn't agree with? Of course. I think every director will do things that not everybody agrees with. It's hard decisions to make. It's the decision, just like Mr. Hay talking about, if it flurries outside, do you close school? Because we all know that in 5 minutes it could get 7 inches. They're hard decisions to make that no matter what decision you make in that kind of leadership role, most of the time you make half the people mad and then make the rest of them happy. As far as being from out of town, Danny was from out of town. Danny did last 12 years, which I believe the statistic for your average director is about 5, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that. It's somewhere around there. So the out of towner that we did have did last well beyond a statistic director. Looking across counties in Tennessee, they're everywhere. The candidate that actually dropped out was from East Tennessee, who was from Shelby County. And she took that job out there to be director. And she was moving to this county to get a little bit closer to Shelby, I think was her initial reason for applying. She ended up dropping out. But I think having a director from out of county, if that is the only reason for the vote, I don't know that that's necessarily always the best person for the job. I'm not saying that we can't find someone in county. I'm just saying that look what we had. We had a director that lasted 12 years.
I'm going to reiterate that in or out was not a deciding factor for me. I do hear people say they want change, but like you say, I don't know that change is specific as much as that's a catchphrase. The former educator that contacted me early on pointed out a lot of good programs, some that I wasn't aware of, and I don't think there's anybody on this board, and if any of you are, I will stand corrected if you point it out, but the board doesn't deal with daily operations of schools, and I don't know that anybody here can tell you every program, every initiative, everything that goes on in the schools as far as programming goes. My point being, with two largely equal candidates, one's pluses outweighs the others and vice versa. No standout, I would say. But I don't think wholesale change is needed. I think there's changes every year. I think where this board missed opportunity was the annual planning and goal setting, in the form of which we attempted a year ago, September. That's not meant to be derogatory. It's meant to be just my opinion. I think when someone in the public wants this board to address something, or a board to address something, it typically has been handled from a knee-jerk reaction, not because of any actions of the board, but because of habitual direction that public education as a whole can go in. Not meant to say that it's anyone's fault. It's the way habits are created. But I think as a board member, I can't make a change without board involvement. And every month coming up with an idea and hoping to get three to agree on an idea is the way to handle change, whether it's add something, take something away, or adjust. I think Dr. Sutherland's interview talked about reviewing programs for their merit and seeing what would need to be done. That's not going to happen overnight, no matter who your director is. It's an ongoing process, always has been, always will be. It depends on the involvement of the people in the board and the director and the relationship and the direction that you go in together. I'm not looking for a wholesale change. I think by far and large, our kids get a great education here. As a board member, we hear when somebody has a problem. When was the last time you had a phone call from a parent or someone that said, "You're doing a great job"? 8,000 kids, over 1,000 employees, 16 schools. They tick great every day. The things that we pick up on or the comments that are given to us are minute in volume. I don't want to see a major change. Dr. Weeks did do 12 years here. For all accountable purposes, a lot of good things happened. I like Dr. Weeks. I didn't always agree with Dr. Weeks. That isn't reflective of a job done, but the fact is he chose, for whatever reason, to go somewhere else. However that transpired, it is behind us. Looking ahead, I don't think that action in itself creates or should create instability amongst the daily operations that go on in a school, nor should it constitute, I want everything topsy-turvy. It's the worst thing we could ever do. I think analyzing is an ongoing thing, whether you have the same director or a different director. It's board involvement and direction with a director. To me, that's the key. That's the avenue to carry that out if something needs to be addressed, suggested, recommended, or desired. There's a process for all of that. It's not Steve wants a director of roofing repair to be put in because there's a roof leak somewhere. Things go every day. We have a good system. We have good people in this community. We have good teachers. We have good kids. think to expect an unknown, and I'm not going to speak for any candidate, but I didn't hear one of them say that they're going to come in and make everybody happy. If everybody's happy, you would have a school board. If things were take place without the public having a say so, you wouldn't need a school board. Without a school board, you'd have no voice whatsoever. It's our job to take that voice, transfer it to whoever the director is, whether it's an interim of Dr. McCord or an unknown or a candidate we have now. It's our job to set that course and direction for them. When this change took place, we were working in that direction. There was a delay because of that. That doesn't mean that everybody out there wants everything topsy-turvy. The biggest thing I hear from the employees, let us do our job. We spent time talking to our legislators a few minutes ago, speaking the same thing. The federal government tells the state what to do. The state wants to cut the federal government off because of it, because it's unfunded or unmanaged mandates that never go away. We said the same thing that the state does to us. The state says, you're going to do something. Third grade retention, whether you like it or not, happened. It started years ago. School letter grades happened. It was started 5 years ago, and they didn't come into this fall and did a town hall meeting, one of which was in Dickson, that I went to. 2 or 3 of y'all in this room went to it. Somebody clarified there was a dozen people in that auditorium, maybe 15. Was there more than that? No. Because people just let it happen. They said how they're going to grade our schools in fall town hall meetings across the state, and they sent a mandate down, and they judge our schools on criteria that was set to use data that happened in the past. Those grades were set by past actions with unknown benchmarks that they had to put them together to put a grade. Yet we're judged by that grade. We're doing the same thing locally. We're telling the state is telling the federal government to stop. We're telling the state to quit doing it to us. Yet we're not letting our teachers and our staffs do their job without a lot of mandates that they don't even know what the end result is. The change that takes place is outside of the school board by far and large. No one's going to come in and change that. It comes from outside direction. We need to lead a leader like we're being asked to let a leader do. We don't just give the leader the responsibility to lead. It's done as a joint effort by contract, by policy, by law. It's a team effort. No one's going to come in and make a magic change that's going to make the world okay. The work starts the day after we appoint a director, not the day of. As a group, we have to make a decision to pick a leader and get behind them and help be a part of that change if it needs to be done. But to say, Dr. Sutherland, Dr. Hubbard, Mr. Hawley, Dr. Duke, unknown future, come in and make everything okay. Just tell us it's okay. This board's got to be involved in that. Our first step is picking somebody that will work with us, our public through us, to give that direction. We have to make a change to start that change. We may have to leave this meeting tonight and come back and do it another time. We could sit here and vote all night long. Come 3 to 3. Do a filibuster if we want to and talk all night long. Because that's not going to change anybody. We may have to leave and let the public weigh in on 2 versus 3. Ultimately, if we don't address and hire a director, we can never start that direction. At that point, we wind up being the problem that needs to be changed.
Higher education entities rarely hire within. If you get your degree from a location, they rarely hire you in an administrative or what position because they want fresh idea. I was got my ability to teach at Austin P for 9 years in the biology department, and new biology department chairman came from another school because it brought new ideas. It brought a new way of thinking. And again, I guess as an educator on this board, I heard from a lot of educators, and I'm just going to be frank. I was asked not to vote. You say, well, you're letting somebody run you. I've been in the system. I know why they were saying do not vote for a particular candidate. And I'm not trying to besmirch Dr. Sullivan's name. I'm just saying that's what I heard. If we listen to the people who we represent, tell us our last paragraph there, I'm responsible for all those students that I've had and the teachers that I've had. When I went to Creekwood after being in Dickson County for 28 years, I was sitting in a faculty meeting one day and I look around, there were 23 high school teachers between Dickson County and Creekwood that I had personally had in class. I couldn't even begin to count the number of middle school teachers, and I didn't even try to think about the elementary. And I was given reasons why they thought this way. I'm sorry.
So what's the board want to do? Take another vote?
I'd like to hear the chair's opinion.
He's cruel.
We all throwing it out there. Come on.
And phone a friend.
Yeah, sure.
Let's take a vote.
There's a motion.
I thought I heard a motion on the table.
I said so move. When you said take a vote, I said so move.
Take the motion, please. Who made the motion?
Mr. Chadwick made the motion.
To vote again?
He did.
Second.
Well, we need to,
Discussion or just a vote?
well, I think we need to vote on his motion. A point of order.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Mr. Vanderwart,
Yes.
Ms. Brogdon.
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yeah.
Take the vote. Vanderboort, Hebron, Brogdon, Sutherland, Mr. Haley, Sutherland, Mr. Chadwick, Hebron, Mr. Underwood, Sutherland, Mr. Parker, Hebron, 3-3, tie.
Mr. Haley.
Madam Chair, just I'm gonna pitch my thoughts out, and the board can do as they choose. But it would appear that everybody's had a chance to speak more than once. That tonight's the first time we've heard each other speak. We have made a vote twice on. We've heard each other tonight for the first time. So it might be our best move to adjourn, absorb some of this, watch this back on our thoughts, and reevaluate our stance. It's just my thoughts is not emotion.
Anyone else?
Madam Chair, I'm prepared to continue the debate. Again, we got two good candidates, and you start talking about comparing resumes. This board set a tone and tenor when this board votes for something, it's all of us when it's approved. So we decided that we would have a candidate that would not did not have to have the requirement of being a principal. So we said assistant principal is good. That was not necessarily what the Tennessee School Board Association came and brought to us, but we as a board, I included, said an assistant principal is okay. I say all that to say experience matters. It just does. I don't know what it's like to be in a school and operate a school. And I would venture to say if you've been out of the classroom or out of a school for 10 years plus, you probably don't know exactly how a school operates. Not the day-to-day, not the principal, not an assistant principal, not even a teacher. So that's why I'm flipping through. I'm looking at various experiences. I see Dr. Hebron. Look at his resume. I don't know, the public, you probably have. The folks sitting here probably have. Probably looked at it thoroughly, but those out in the audience maybe have not. You know that he's the current director of schools for Hollow Rock, but he's also been the supervisor of special education for Oak Ridge. Folks, we deal with a lot of school-related issues regarding special education, a ton. Because I hear from folks, and I've heard from folks during this time period, that folks that they have children with disabilities and they need to be treated fairly and inclusive. But we also got another issue. We've got kids that need to get regular education. You combine the two, and sometimes we haven't figured that out. The legislature hasn't figured that out. The federal government hasn't figured that out. So there are some issues. Supervisor of special education at Oak Ridge. Probably not a small school system. I don't know the number. You go on, and he was the principal at Claxton Elementary in Powell for 7 years. Served at there's a whole laundry list of things he did, so I won't bore you with that. Then we jump over That was from 2008 to 2015. From 2003 to 2008, he was at Clinton Middle School, Clinton, Tennessee, classroom teacher. So athletic director. So a lot of experiences. And now let's back up. We've got Miss Sutherland, Dr. Sutherland, who has absolutely been in the classroom, who absolutely has a stellar career. I'm not saying she hasn't, and it's good, but you start comparing what I see as experiences, and they're different. I'm not saying they're less, but they're different. So again, we all have to sit up here and try and evaluate and look at what we think is the best candidate. So we start looking at, okay, recommendations. Dr. Hebert apparently has recommendations from the Assistant Superintendent of Operations for Knox County Schools. Superintendent for Dr. Bruce Borchers for Oak Ridge Schools, large school district. Director of Schools, retired, Larry Foster for Anderson County. Bruce Lay, Executive Director of School Leadership, Oak Ridge. Miss Ann Moore, Administrative Assistant for Special Education at Oak Ridge. So, again, Mr. Underwood brought up different recommendations. They all have good recommendations, professional recommendations. And again, I think both are well qualified. It's just a matter of who has the best, in my mind, the best experience to lead in such a way that is, like I still say, be cohesive and bring us together. I think Dr. Hubbard is very personable. I think it's a scenario that's some of the things I'm looking at right now, just those experiences comparatively. So thank you.
I agree. They're both well qualified. They both bring different things to the table. You know, that. So, but the problem is when it comes to leadership here at this school board is we set the tone. Just as you mentioned, the retreats that we take to come up with our goals and objectives for the next year that the directors to carry out and therefore be evaluated on. So any change that someone wants starts right here with these 6 people. I agree with Kirk. Again, they're both well qualified. I'm staying with our hometown leader, Miss Sullivan. Sutherland. Thank you.
So what's our next step?
Everybody's looking at you for the next step, it looks like, ma'am. I made my suggestion, and I agree with Mr. Vandervoort. We'll have to make a decision. But being that this is the first time that I've heard every board member speak their justification, it's not like I've heard it 5 times before. And I think that if we're going to point out accolades. I could pull 2 or 3 out from Dr. Sutherland's also. My decision between the two was made from the fact of the current investment in Dickson County and the fact that it's known here in this community and you work in this community every day. While you might not be an assistant principal for 10 plus years, whatever it was, it doesn't remove the fact that you're in the schools every day, multiple schools every day. After being the secondary director of education for this system, worked with the state, visiting schools, and I'm going to say 9 counties, multiple schools. Was there more than that? It was more than 9 county district to train and work with. There'd be a liaison between the state board of education and all the schools. That's quite the regional experience. That's quite the experience in multiple schools, multiple areas, multiple contacts with references from some of those schools, one being the director of schools of Murfreesboro, Dr. Trey Duke, without looking, I hope I got that right, Dr. Trey Duke, who is notably one of the higher respected directors in this state. There's a letter in here from him. Recommends her for that position. My vote's been made. The input I've heard tonight, while I would watch it back and give it due diligence, I think that it speaks for itself. We're going to sit here and look back and forth all night until somebody gets tired and nods a different direction. That's not the way it needs to work. I'm here for the night if it will make a difference. If it won't, it might have to have some time to absorb and hear from the public.
I guess my issue is we have heard from the public for the last 2 months. We have. And it's been a. You speak up. Oh, yes, sir. I said we've heard from the public for the last 2 months. I mean, thoroughly. I mean, to the point of saturation. And that's fine. That's what we're here for. So I guess, sure, if folks want to sleep on it, I understand that. But I think our job and obligation is to try to pick the best candidate. And if we've got an obligation, we have a responsibility. I'm on my 3rd, quite frankly. So, and that's just me being straightforward. Probably if I had to be straightforward, and I am straightforward, the most emails I got was for Dr. Huber. The most. Now, that may just be a good campaign by certain folks. I don't know. But there are a lot of folks. And it wasn't necessarily about change. That's not what we don't need change. That's not what I heard from Dr. Hebert. He said, I asked him, I said, when you come in here with hiring, are you going to make a change? No, I'm not. I'm going to figure out the system, basically, figure out where we are. So I think most of the candidates said that. And that's obviously a good assessment. It's what needs to occur. But no, our schools are, for the majority and most part, doing great. They just are. There are obvious improvements, and certain schools need improvements. But so I'm not. That's not what this is about for me. Not quote change, because I told you I think we had a great director, and we suffered a loss. Is what has happened. So, I think both of these folks are good leaders. But it's just a matter who is
who is a better leader, who's demonstrated. And that's where I am.
I agree with Kirk. We've said it. We've, suffered a great loss when we lost our director. That was not our decision. It's not our desire. But yet we're in this boat. Just as Kirk said, this is not someplace we want to be. Not someplace I want to be. But for me, I'm going to say it again. I'm going to be just as diplomatic as I can be. But I'd like someone from within. And well, I think all the candidates were great from within. I think Ms. Sullivan was more rounded than any of the other three candidates in the field of education. Spoke before the state, represented the state, different schools, was given high accolades from those schools. She's served here as over the high schools and the middle schools as a secondary education. She's worked under our former director, which has been spoken so highly of here today. So, one thing growing up and through my work life and working at the plants and what have you, whenever it came time to hire a supervisor or a team leader, it didn't matter which plant I was in, they wanted me to hire someone from within. Because you got to have that morale from within to build up and to bring up those. You got to give people something to work toward. And so there again, I'm looking to hire from within. I'm not looking to hire within without qualifications. I'm looking to hire within because she has those qualifications. I know some of what I'm saying is redundant, but I want you to think about in y'all's work, wherever you work, someone's going to give, if there's a job coming up that you want and you go for it and you don't get it and you lose it to somebody outside and you were qualified, how does that make you feel? What is the morale of you and the people around you that are working if you don't hire from within? I'm a Dickson boy. And when we have it here in Dickson County, I think we need to keep it here in Dickson County, because when we keep it here in Dickson County, it doesn't leave Dickson County. That home is in Dickson County. Her husband's home is in Dickson County. Her kids are in Dickson County. When she's done as director, she is still home in Dickson County. She's not going to Robertson County. She's not going anywhere else. She's staying here. So I'd like to ask for another vote, and I ask you respectfully, you three gentlemen, I ask that you get on board with Miss Christie.
Mr. Underwood, I think us three have about the same desire to see our candidate. So could I propose that question to you?
Sure. Now's the time to speak.
Like I said, get on board and go for the one you want.
Mm-hmm.
Could you not get on board and go for the one we want?
Give me your argument, sir. Give me your argument.
Again, as the educator on this board, things that I want to say it's going to look like I'm out to destroy somebody, but I'm not, because these things have been done to people because of the actions of this individual.
Mr. Chadwick, I think the rest of us have gotten phone calls too.
Well, he asked me to give my reasons.
So your reasons are personal reasons?
Well, because something happened at the school that I was teaching in. Does that make it a personal reason? I have no intention of destroying anybody. It's just these are facts of things that have happened.
Can I say something right quick, and then I'll let you continue? I don't mind talking about different things that might have happened. The problem is we have no basis to go off of that with Mr. Miles. He's got skeletons in his closet just like everybody else here. And, the more you know somebody, the more skeletons you're going to find. So I think from that standpoint, I wish you'd rethink your argument. Thank you.
Let's take a short recess.
If I may.
Okay.
So Mr. Chadwick has a point, and that's talking about getting on board. And I guess I'll reiterate what is said. It's course of someone being here local takes them so far. And like I said earlier, we've got folks on the board here that listed their candidates as 1 and 2. That was Mr. Hebert, Dr. Hebert. That was not local. So that local ring doesn't exactly ring to me when we had 2 other very highly qualified folks, that were not here local, that were here local. So to sit there and, that's a contradiction in and of itself. I don't want to, like I said, I'm not trying to get going back and forth, but I am making an argument that this whole, I'm doing it because this person's absolutely local, it just is ringing hollow. So I think we've got 2 good qualified folks. One does happen to be out of town. One does happen to be here. And I sure things happen. Probably, why did you bring up this Theodore Roosevelt? Because it was important. Somebody that has been in the arena, somebody that has the scars, and that's what Mr. Chadwick is talking about. And that's probably Mr. Miles has. Dr. Miles has those as well. We all do. We all have scars from the practice of law, from being a diesel mechanic, from operating a business, selling real estate, hospital administrator. So we all do. And so sometimes it's not personal, but about these things. It doesn't make it personal. It's just a scenario that for me, it's about experience and has nothing to do with any personal things, and has all to do with just trying to make the best decision. So trying to cajole some folks to say, get on board. I understand from where Mr. Chadwick is coming.
I didn't tell you to get on board. I asked you to get on board. And, as far as our first pick, my number 1 was Christie. So,
but we didn't rank them. No, sir, we didn't rank them. I just said
right.
1 and 2.
One and two.
We didn't rank them
right.
in any order.
Mm-hmm.
But there was. Well, I just know there were certain folks. I didn't name names.
Okay.
But there were certain folks who
I want to make sure you weren't directing that at me or something.
No, sir.
Okay.
But we know who the folks are. We can go back and do the votes. So that's why I say it just doesn't have that ring to it.
And he got 4 votes that first time we voted.
4 picks. I'm just going to respond to Mr. Underwood on a few things. As we talk about locals, what is locals? Cheatham County hired a director out of Colorado. She wasn't local. This guy's 2 counties over. He's made his home in Tennessee. It's not Dickson County. He wasn't born in Dickson County. I wasn't born in Dickson County.
No, I named
True story.
her.
But, 2 counties over, the man set his feet in Tennessee and said his kids are going to graduate in Tennessee. Whether he moves 2 counties over, I don't know that a man who decided he was going to live in this state, who moved every 3 years of his life due to his father in military. So I don't think moving and setting your feet in Dickson County is an issue. That's just a response to the homegrown. A response to the morale. I think a lot of what Mr. Chadwick's talking about is just morale from just people that have contacted saying that they don't want a certain candidate. And I think everyone's got emails saying that whatever you do, only vote Dickson County. Got probably the same amount of votes say whatever you do, vote out of county. And then we got all had an equal share of whatever you do. I don't want this person. And I'm not saying who that person is. We all got them for everybody. Right. So the only downfall that we heard in my email list and in my phone call list about Mr. Miles was he wasn't born in Dickson County. And that's the only downfall that I heard from him. Argumentative about his district small, his this, his that, but the only real downfall was he wasn't born in Dickson County. His feet are set in Tennessee and has been for 20 however many years he said, and I think moving a county or 2 over is not a big deal for a man who moved every 3 years his whole life to build his family here in Tennessee. As a director of schools, I mean, we asked about being a stepping stone. The only stepping stone for a man that has a position or a woman that has that position is a bigger district with more kids. And a man is moving up to a bigger district that is, I don't know, we're ranked something 29th, or is that what we are, somewhere around there? Not a bunch of stepping stones above us. Not a bunch of stepping stones above us. But to the morale thing is, I never felt like I heard anything that was going to have a hurtful morale in the system from Mr. Miles. And I did hear that about some of our local candidates.
Try to sit back and listen, but I do want to respond to your last comment. Mr. Chadwick also. You could ask around. I've been in this town 59 years, and there are people that would be against me. That's okay. That's because I've been around people 59 years. This is not meant as a comment towards Dr. Ebrard, but he's a nice guy. I've met him 3 times in my life. One time passing in the hallway, how you doing? Introduction. I hear you're looking for a director. The opportunity for someone in the Opryland Hotel hallway to say, that guy's got a skeleton is pretty slim. An interview for 3 hours, the opportunity is pretty slim. Interview for an hour, it's pretty slim. But if I've been around you for 35 years, there's going to be some people that may not want you as part of a system. That's normal. There are people in this system that cheered the day our last director left. There are people that feared the day he left. Think he was a good director. I think we had differences of opinion sometimes, a difference in direction. That's to be expected whenever you are around people. If you are in a school building with 80 employees in one building, I don't think there's any one person that's going to have 80 people praising them every day. You're going to hear those things. It's not meant to be a derogatory comment towards you. I'm just making a fact of life. You work for 40 years, there are going to be people that might not be fond of you. There are people not fond of me. But I think when push comes to shove, they know what I stand for, and they will support what I stand for. There are people here that have told me to do something different. I've justified why I've done it. That doesn't mean they have to like me. They may or may not, but they know why I'm doing something. And there's a certain level of respect that goes with that. Whatever it is that keeps you from supporting a well-qualified, well-experienced, well-versed candidate that we've had in our system for that many years, whatever experience someone has said, there are going to be several of those. I don't care who you bring in to be a director. If they're here for 5 years, you're not going to have 100% support at that point. So the fact that there's nothing known in a negative standpoint, I think even the candidate himself sat here and said, I'm not a perfect man. It's just a fact. I had about 5 hours around somebody. 5 hours. Yet that is a selection. All of the things being obviously discussed equal, outweigh each other. Going to base the fact that you don't want somebody in this town because their address is in this town, because you don't know anything about them. I don't want any of this discussion to turn into a personal effect, because while we may differ in that opinion, tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're going to be on the same school board together until one of us is gone. And there's going to be a middle ground found to take care of our kids. I go back to that elementary scenario. That child doesn't care what you've heard in a 5-hour exposure or a 40-year exposure. If you think for a minute you're going to have someone come in here and spend their first year, their first month, their first week without somebody saying something didn't suit me, is absolutely zero. To me, you know what you're getting right there. If there is a negative, you know what that negative is. What I know about that lady right there, she walked up here and offered to ask after that last meeting, is there something I can discuss? And my question is, has anybody discussed that with her? Has anybody said, here's what I know, here's what I wonder about? I'm not asking you to answer the question. I'm asking you to ask it to yourself. Did you take that step to have that discussion? And do you think that anybody, whether it's the other candidate or anybody in the world, is going to walk in here and take that job and you're not going to hear some things? Then you're sadly mistaken.
I'm going
I
to call
know
for
that.
a recess, please.
Thank you.
reconvene here. Have any other discussion?
I knew when I decided to do this that there would be times that people would be happy with me and times that people wouldn't be happy with me. I've had one person tonight be happy. I've had one person tonight not be happy and come personally and told me that. But the one thing that Mr. Hall has advised me that I can say is I have text message on my phone stating that if she is elected, we are afraid of retribution. That's, other things he says I can't say because they weren't directed at me or said to me at any one time, but other people have given reasons for their candidate that I don't think they had direct messaging, but it seems I can't report. And again, Dr. Sutherland, I'm not out to destroy you. I'm just saying this is what I have been told. I've been asked, like everybody else on this board, they've been asked to vote for a particular person. And I'm sorry, but you wasn't it. And again, it's not meant to besmirk you. It's just, this is what teachers have come out and asked me to do. I'll close my comments.
Any other comments? Mr. Vanderbilt.
Just a continuation of making sure the public is aware, and I'm aware of looking at Dr. Hebert's resume. And again, Dr. Sutherland has a tremendous record as well. She put together a notebook, and it's a very good notebook, and it's had a lot of accolades, a lot of certificates that she had received. But I'm sitting here looking at Dr. Hebert's, and it says he is or has been an adjunct professor at King University from April of 2019 through June of 2021. He was an assistant resident manager at the University of Tennessee from 2000 to 2003. So just some different experiences. But obviously someone thought enough of him for him to be an adjunct professor at a college. So, again, varying experiences. In his resume, he has about 7 or 8 different presentations that he's given, dating from about 2007 through 2023. Some of them are on disability. Some of them are educational dreamers addressing the future. One was meeting the needs of students with disabilities as a grandparent. Why not? Students with disabilities making a difference. So, variety of experience and variety of abilities. Just looking at his resume.
I'd like to respond to Mr. Chadwick. Respectfully, as a fellow board member, from a board member standpoint, not pushing either side, just making a board member comment. As a board member, you're elected by 2 districts in Dickson County. Create one county school board district to make decisions that are best for the school system. You're a voice of the people. Our job is to hear the people. Sometimes when I hear from the people, I explain to them what I know or what I think. Spent today talking to a former employee of the school system who wanted the board to take some action to do something on an event. I explained to that person that it's not the board's job. We take care of if an employee has been mistreated or is not being treated in a fair fashion, we're an appeals avenue for them. But as far as daily action, we have no authority over employees. We do have authority over one employee. The director of schools works for this board. Dr. Vivian McCord works for this board as an interim director. If she were to go have retribution or retaliation on something that happened while she was here 3 years ago and start an action that as a board member I hear about, I can bring that to the board and the board can take action. The employees are safe from retribution by policy, by law, not by contract, because teacher contracts don't exist, but by the way employees are treated. They cannot be singled out and mistreated by anyone without having an appeals for a board to deal with. I don't think that there's anyone that I've dealt with in the school system since I've been here 15 years that retribution or retaliation against a personal vendetta on anyone. If there's a professional reason that something has to be adjusted, that is their prerogative. That's their job. It is any employer's job to treat employees fair. There are laws that protect employees from unfair retribution. There are avenues. Only a fool would reach out and retaliate because they had a position and think they're going to get by with that. That's not the world we live in. Anyone in human resources that's been in human resources knows that's not an option. And if it is and found out, there are serious consequences for that. Serious avenues that you as an employer can handle. You have the ability to handle that on a daily basis as a school board. That is our job. It's not to deny an experienced, educated, qualified person who's made it through every step that we look for, to deny the children of Dickson, the people of Dickson, a leadership based on the fact of a fear of what might happen when we as a board have the ability to handle that. That is our job. If the board is involved with any director, and I hope this board will be, I hope as much as we may disagree that when it's over, we come together and we lead a leader to lead our system in the right direction. That's our jobs. And I expect to do my job. That employee will be safe from anything that would be unjust.
As I sit here and I watch, kind of observe things, I listen to things, and Miss Christie will be spending a majority of her time, of course, up here in this office with an administration. And as I sit back here during this break and I ponder out across this crowd and I see Miss Ernestine go by, Miss Christie, and I see Mr. Joey Holly go by, and I see Miss Morrow over there, and how they go by and they pat her on the shoulder, pat her on the back as they go by. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I could only imagine them saying, "Hang in there." I don't see I don't see the dysfunction that you're talking about here amongst the people, especially in this front office. I see a majority of support, and I'm going to continue to support her.
I just want to make a comment that the reason we're having such a tough decision is, in my opinion, we have the two that had the best resume and the best experience, and that's why it's a struggle for us. We're having to choose between those two. I want to make a motion that we take one more vote. And if it doesn't settle anything, then we'll have to come back next week.
Second.
Any other discussion? Some time?
Yeah, some more. If you don't mind,
Sure.
I'm thinking. You know, I've put even when we had the four candidates and then down to three and now down to two, I've put every scenario I could think of in my head about how I thought everybody was going to vote, and it kind of ended up this ties. What am I going to do? How do I feel? You got to go with the way that you feel in your gut, and it's all you got to go for. And no matter who the director ends up being from the beginning, my vote or not, lose a vote. If I lose 4-2, it's a lost vote, and I'm going to support that director and work with that director because that's what we're here to do. Voting for somebody doesn't mean I'm voting against anybody. It's not the case. We got to have a united front as a board. That's what I wanted. I knew it wasn't going to happen. I can tell it wasn't going to happen when we made our first top two picks. I thought, well, what we're going to do is tie it all the way around, and that's what it was. Said all that without a point, so I'm still thinking. Is the 22nd the only day that we got a meeting this month?
Yes, sir.
You may talk so you can stare at me while you're thinking.
Go
I
ahead.
don't want you to have time.
Yeah, I got nothing else to say.
I don't want you to think what you want to say. I don't want to interject with it, but I don't want you to feel like you're being pushed to think. But it can be a tough decision, and ultimately, I agree with you. I think whatever comes, I think I'm proud to serve with this board. People looking on right now, there's people watching that probably have never watched before, but I don't think that people realize what this group of 6 people, the time they've invested in since you and Mr. Chowick came on, that how much work y'all put in, how much time y'all put in, how much involvement, and probably the fact that we have had so much work and happen over the past 18 months. While it's prepared you probably far beyond what I was prepared for 18 months in, I think it also makes you have some deeper thoughts where you might not have before. So I'm actually proud to serve this board. I'm proud of this board, and while we have to speak in the public, I don't think people really realize that. And without the opportunity to have any discussions outside this meeting, that leaves us here sharing thoughts back and forth. And you're basically on the stage in front of the world making comments that would have been a whole lot better if you could have said them somewhere else, but it's illegal and it doesn't happen. So therefore, it leaves this scenario. And I think the outcome will be on the end that this group will come together because they're well trained for that, and they will set goals together, they will work together. And I think whichever director is chosen, I think both of them will realize that and be proud to work with this board also. I do believe that. That give you enough time.
Still voting.
So the motion again is to take another vote, and then if that vote does not result in a candidate, to adjourn. And do we have a specific date in mind?
Sometime next week.
Okay. I think it's I understand your motion. Again, I think it's important that it's getting a little late, but we stay here and debate this. It's just not going to get any different, any better until we come to some agreement. And I don't know that we will, but I guess we'll just have to figure it out. I want to talk about the criteria. I don't know about what you all did, but I judge folks on the number one. There's still a lot of debate to occur. There just is. And I'm prepared to do that, but there's a motion on the table. Call the question.
I'm prepared to do that too.
Question's been called. Non-debatable motion. The motion was to take the vote, and if the vote,
Point of order.
Yeah.
Question be called. Just know the question first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah, you're right. Sorry. Late. Take a vote on the question.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Vandervoort,
Yes.
Ms. Brogdon,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Questions called, so now the motion to vote again. And if no candidate is selected, then we adjourn and come back next week.
Roll call.
That was,
I'd like to amend.
Do what?
Can we amend that to stay here?
After the second.
Well, do we have a motion?
Do we have a second?
Yeah, there was a second, Ms. Sonia, you made the motion and Mr. Underwood seconded that motion. The question was called, and so now we're voting on, question prevailed. So now we're voting on the motion.
And the motion, restate the motion so
And the
everyone understands it.
motion is to have another vote. And if no candidate is selected, to adjourn and come back next week.
I got all the ignorance in the world on what's going on.
Okay.
Called the question is, I've heard it. I know we voted on it maybe once since I've been on this board. I don't know what that means.
The call to question means that Mr. Vandervoort made the motion to have the vote on Ms. Brogdon's motion. And that's a non-debatable motion, which you all voted in favor of. And so now the motion that Ms. Brogdon made, that's the question at hand. And the motion that Ms. Brogdon made and seconded by Mr. Underwood is going to be voted upon. And that motion was to have another vote. And if the vote tied 3-3, then you would come back next week to debate further.
With or without further discussion on the motion.
No, when the question is called, then debate ceases. And now we're going to vote on Ms. Brogdon's motion.
Well, I wish I knew the rules before I voted, but I understand.
Call the vote.
Mr. Vanderboort,
No.
Ms. Brogdon,
Yes.
Mr. Haley.
I don't understand the motion. I apologize. I thought it was a,
Ms. Brogdon's motion, if I understood it correctly, and the way I've written it down, is a motion for the board to vote again.
thank you. I vote yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
I'm going to vote no.
Mr. Parker.
No.
Motion fails.
So I guess as far as we've got to get this discussion continued. Discussion, I don't feel like is going to be any different over discussion in a day or two, a week or two. I think we're still going to be discussing the same two candidates, and as Mr. Haley said earlier, we're not discussing them outside of the public's view, outside of the YouTube, and outside of this desk right here. So waiting, I don't know, changes it. I also get up at 5 o'clock, but I'm going to stay here till 4:30. I guess I would like to ask the people, the board members who are voting in favor of Ms. Sutherland to, I guess, can we have a discussion on telling me why you do not want to vote for Mr. Ma? And I don't know if that's a fair question to ask y'all. I'm just trying to keep the discussion going to help to help everybody understand everything and maybe influence one of us one way or another. And so maybe the discussions have been how great each candidate is. Maybe a discussion on from both sides, without picking scabs of why not the other candidate. And that just changes the discussion instead of, I feel like that we've all looked at both of their resumes. We all know that they have great resumes, and we basically read both of their resumes aloud tonight. So, and it's not a bad thing. I just think that discussion is sailed off in the sea, and now we need to change the discussion. What would a board member, and it could be, this could be from any of us, reasons why not to vote for the other one, and maybe that would sway somebody.
Mr. Haley?
I guess pulling this mic up so I had a light in it says, I'm raising my hand. I appreciate that. I'll answer your question. From my standpoint, why would I am not interested in changing my vote? I said it initially, and I'm going to say it again. I think that this transition is something that we are upon. I think it is there. I think the transition period is an important thing. And I think under no fault of Dr. Hubbard himself, I think just a natural transition of learning a system, I think it creates two things. I think it creates a delay of continuing and moving the system forward. I think there is a learning curve process in there. I think that creates a potential vacuum effect. When I say vacuum effect, I think whenever that curve period comes in, while you would think it would create only a positive outcome with a new idea coming in, I think it would equally risk creating influences over a time period that might be adversary. I did lose my train of thought for a second on that, but the transition period, I think it's going to be smoother and quicker with someone that has been in our system as many years as they have to know the workings already, to pick up and move. Largely why I voted for Dr. McCord to be an interim, because she knew the system, had been in it, and to me it was a natural interim to bring in because she was familiar with the system and knew what needed to or not be done. Always is help from the staff and always support from the staff. But I think it gave the staff some comfort to continue through this period. I think the discomfort spoken of is always there. The unknown is what creates a lot of the anxiety of what may be or may not be. But I think the lack of that period of the honeymoon period, so to speak, I think helps us move forward with the good programs that we have going now to keep them going in a positive direction. It's just my thoughts on it.
So on the transition standpoint, if you look at it in that light, I mean, arguably, we'd never hire anybody from outside the system because there's always going to be a transition. I mean, it's just the way it works. If you think about a transition, which leads me right back into experience. We're talking about someone that is a director of schools presently, making those decisions, making those director of school decisions. So I don't know that I'm concerned about a transition. Again, both folks are highly qualified professionals, but it gets back to the experience. We have a candidate that has a director of schools. There is a director of schools, has been a principal for different level of schools, has been a supervisor. So that's that on that issue. I get to the criterion. I think criterion one, which was probably from our community output, was one of the most. It was the reason it was listed as number one because it was most important. I think both of these folks are good listeners. I look at it. I happen to score him like 1 point higher than Dr. Sullivan, but they're both good listeners. But you start looking at the criterion, all from a leadership standpoint, academic standpoint, experience standpoint. I just feel like my scoring on him was higher. And I'm looking at the criteria that the community at large asked for us to take up and consider. So I don't know how you all did it. We had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out the side, low to high, and that's how I did it. I actually went down and did a score. So we're utilizing the form that was provided for us. So you start looking at that criteria, and that's why I think it's important that we consider it because, one, we adopted the criteria, two, the community wanted us to use this criteria because that's from where we got it. So I don't know how you all did it, but that's how I did it. And he scored higher on that. And then I get to the person. Just I get back to very friendly, very amenable, able to communicate. I think sounded like he was able to communicate with many diverse groups. This is a person that one morning they're going to be dealing with a parent that's sitting in the lobby, and the next evening, they're going to have to go and talk to 12 people about borrowing $35 million, all the while dealing with us. So it's not one thing. It is that diverse experience that I'm looking for, but it's the experience. It's so that's from where I'm coming. But the reason I was flipping through this notebook and I'm seeing others grab it, I think it's important that we look at it. I think it's important that we recall why we used it, why we went through 4 nights of interviews and talked to people and interviewed them, and we used specific questions. If we weren't going to rate folks on it, why did we use them? I mean, we could have done what we did the second night, which is just ask, free-for-all questions. So I don't know how, again, I put it out there for you all to talk to me, tell tell all of us what your thoughts were on the scoring. Because that's how I did it. It doesn't mean you all had to do it that way, but I wondered why there was a 1, 2, or 3, and that's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and why we were using it if we actually weren't going to score. And that's
Haley?
And to the point of the criteria, I have looked at that sheet, and for those that say that's what the community report put out. But I will point out that the overall ranking, number 19 of 21 items, the 19th most important thing, 21 items from all people surveyed, was successful experience as a director of schools.
Would you reiterate on that?
I have 21 criteria from the public meetings, the community meetings, the staff, the teachers, online survey. The overall ranking of number 19, it was a successful experience as a director of schools. That was the 19 of 21 ranking of the people surveyed.
All the candidates had the questions. They had time to come up with their answers. One candidate came in and talked for the first time almost 3 hours extemporaneously answering the questions that each one of us asked. And one candidate basically covered the answers that was in the booklet that was prepared. When somebody walks through that door back yonder some morning, afternoon, or whatever, there's not going to be time to look the answer up in a book. It's got to be done on their feet, thinking through things.
Underwood?
Are you talking about Mr. Hawley?
No,
I'm not following you.
the two candidates that we're talking about now. One talked extemporaneously for all those hours, and one candidate basically looked at their book to answer the questions that had been prepared, the answers that had been prepared. That's not to say Dr. Hebert hadn't looked at the questions and thought about the answers, but the answers weren't laying there before him.
Yeah, that was Mr. Hawley, sir. If I remember right.
Miss Sutherland laid a book down too.
Yeah, but it didn't have the questions and the answers in it.
She referred to it several times.
Yes, it was very well thought out. It, again, had all of her qualifications, and it had a extensive plan for, as we went over the other night, 90 days, 120 days, et cetera, for this board to look at. It was, had several letters of recommendation, and I think you've got her mixed up with someone else, respectfully.
Any more comments? Any other comments?
make a motion. Go ahead.
Mr. Chadwick, you have something else?
I'm conflicted by saying this, but in the voting process the other night, nobody whispered Dr. Hubert's name in my ear.
Me neither.
Me neither.
I would,
I got whispered a name though.
Madam Chair, I would make a motion that we proceed to a vote.
Motion to vote?
That's
Mr. Haley, was that your second?
Yes, sir.
Take up the motion. Take up the motion.
We have a motion to vote and we have a second.
Yes. Mr.
Please make the vote. Oh, with the discussion.
Just vote up the motion.
Oh, vote on.
Mr. Vanderhorst,
Yes.
Ms. Brogdon,
Yes.
Mr. Haley.
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
I want to vote. Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
yes.
Motion passes. Mr. Vanderbilt, Miles Hebert, Ms. Brogdon, Christy Sutherland, Mr. Haley, Christy Sutherland, Mr. Chadwick, Miles Hebert, Mr. Underwood, Christy Sutherland, Mr. Parker, Miles Hebert. 3-3.
Madam Chair, I move that we recess the meeting as opposed to adjourn. That way the next meeting is a continuation of this meeting. Save our taxpayers some money.
A motion to recess?
For what date? Whenever you decide.
Motions to recess to a date to be announced and made public notice as required by law by our chair and executive committee.
Second.
The date's going to be, I'm sorry. So the date is just going to be set by,
I think the initial discussion last was it would be sometime next week. And if y'all want to pick a date, I can add a date to that motion. And if I had to add a date to it, I'd say next Tuesday or Wednesday night. We do have a legislative event Monday and Tuesday to be out of town for. Got my date wrong. That's a week later, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then I will let that date be up to you as we discussed before over next week. We can do it Monday or Tuesday.
with all due respect to the chair, I would like for us to come up with a date if we're going
That's
to look
fine.
at it.
Look at your dates.
Obviously taking everybody's into consideration. Right now, Monday is the date. I've got a commitment on that night, but I can rearrange and schedule. The 6th is, I'm already committed to a meeting. Same on the 7th. I have an all-day trial on the 8th that I don't know if it'll carry over into the Monday, the 5th, February the 5th.
Madam Chair, if this is a recess, does it have to be? I'm asking this because I'm going to ask about tomorrow. Is there enough being a recess? I'm just trying to 100%. We can definitely advertise it. I know that we usually have to give a 24-hour advertisement for a legal meeting, but this being a recess of this meeting, is that advertisement necessary, and is tomorrow an option?
A recessed meeting would not have to be advertised, although it would be good to advertise it. And we're not required by law to give 24 hours notice, only adequate notice. And so since we're streaming this live and we recess to a date certain, then the notice, in my opinion, would be adequate. So,
Madam Chair,
Sure, Mr. Vandermore.
so what you're proposing is Groundhog's Day? I'm just saying.
We'll find out in the morning. You know.
Well, Friday.
And I'm just. That's just a, if this, I know you usually have to advertise. I guess we try to probably do 24 hours. And I was just saying, if being a recess, absolutely advertise however we always do. But I don't know that the notice is as relevant as it is legally, just because of being continuation. And so I'm just saying tomorrow could be an option. I'm good with whatever.
I'm available on the 2nd that evening.
I'm not sure how we're going to get to all the phone calls in the next 24 hours. But
Oh, you'll get them.
yeah.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
Are we talking about 6 o'clock?
Whatever.
Work schedule?
Anytime after 6.
After 6.
Anytime 6 is fine.
Just make my motion to recess till tomorrow at 6 p.m.
I second the motion.
well,
Wait a minute.
we have a prior motion on the table.
It was my motion, so I'm in it.
You did amend it?
It's my motion, and I'll make my motion to be a recess. The motion is a recess to a later date. I will make my motion to be recessed till tomorrow at 6 p.m.
So there's the motion.
Not to vote.
Second.
It was, just for clarity,
What was the first motion?
The first motion was to recess the meeting to a date certain to be picked by the chair. And then you all discussed setting a date. And so
Recess.
I don't know. What I was getting clarity, you don't want to take a vote if it doesn't. I'm following you. You're good. No, sorry.
Groundhog Day, got me.
Yeah.
So we have, Mr. Haley amended his original motion to recess for a date to be picked by the chair to a motion to recess the our next coming back together, this body for tomorrow, February 2nd at 6 p.m. And I haven't had a second to the amended motion. Mr. Parker renews his second.
Mr. Vandervoort,
Yes.
Ms. Brogdon,
Yes.
Mr. Haley,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Underwood,
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
We're in recess until 6 o'clock.